Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. My name is Brian Gleason,
My name is Eddy Bañuelos.
and we are two of the writers featured in this book called Letters to Young Gay Men. And what the book is about is, well, it's a book of letters. And why letters? Well, after doing a project called Rise Up and Shout for, a period of about 10 years, Eddy was part of one of them. We did 4 of them total. It was groups of LGBT youth who would come in and do performance pieces and participate in our mentoring events and then go on stage in front of an audience that we somewhat handpicked and also sold tickets to. It was an event to, the reason that part of the audience was handpicked was because we wanted people who were supportive of community. We wanted people who worked for community organizations, LGBT organizations and things like that, to help the youth come out, to bring their voice out. They may already be out as LGBT, but to further bring their voice out as a poet, as a dancer, as a filmmaker. And based on the notion that to form a community, to really fully come out or come out further, it's important to have a welcoming. And the welcoming were the people in the audience. So we put together about 300 people, and mostly from the LGBT community. And it was a really cool event, series of events, where the audience was very participatory in helping these people bring their voice into the world. And the understanding there is that youth cannot fully come into the world until they're welcomed in some way. And it's a repeated series of things. And unfortunately, what happens with a lot of youth is they're welcomed via drugs and alcohol, or maybe just in a positive way, but just with their family. Maybe there's a local church. Sometimes it's a gang. Sometimes it's a sports team. This was community-based, LGBT. How do we get adults, elders, and youth together, people who never mix, intergenerations that never mix in the LGBT community? How do we get them together and to help support each other and to help the youth bring their voice out into the world? So it was not about talent. It was really more about the inner voice, the voice that people come out into the world with, their gift of love to the world, maybe some poetry that they write, whether they become poets or not, maybe some film that they make, or dance, or music that they make and give to the world. Again, whether or not they become that as a career, this was more to help them bring that out and have it welcomed and validated. So the book came together. I got in touch with the youth from Rise Up and Shout over the series of 10 years, and several people wanted to do this project. Several were not available for various reasons, to write letters to one another. My thinking was, we've been doing this for almost 10 years. We've had people all the way from 90 years old down to, I think you were 15 at the time. Yeah. And talking, mentoring one another, helping each other bring out their voice, hone their dance step, work their poetry, work with lighting technicians or whatever stage hands that they may never have done before. And what we wanted to do was further that process, have them continue the conversation with each other past the event, past the mentoring event. And so for about a year, we wrote letters to one another. Eddy and I were paired up. There were other pairings. There were a total of 8, and they wrote letters to one another. I was the editor for the book. So they would write their letters to one another, and then I would see them and suggest certain things, but I did not, revise seriously or do anything like that. So, and it's based on an old book called Letters to a Young Poet, written by a poet named Rilke. And this was back in the 19th century, and Rilke was probably Europe's or the world's best known poet at the time. Still is a very well-renowned poet. And he got a letter, or a series of letters, from a soldier in the battlefield in Europe who wanted to be a poet, and sent Rilke his verses and said, "What do you think?" And Rilke wrote back to him, surprisingly, and said, "Well, it's not up to me to judge your poetry, but my question to you is, why are you writing to me to ask you how your verses are? Why do you want to write? What is about you that wants to write?" And that led to a series of letters between these two men, elder and a youth, that got into issues of life and death, sacrifices on the battlefield, poetry, art, love, things of that nature. And it became a very well-known book called Letters to a Young Poet. And so this book that we put together, and it didn't have any sort of guidelines or anything, just what are the things that are most important to you? What gets at you? What's kind of rolling around in your soul? And what would you like to talk about? And so it became an exchange over a year of letters back and forth. Letters are very intimate, they're very real, they're very in the moment. And that's why I wanted to pursue that particular form. And so that resulted in this book. And so Eddy and I will read some of the letters, but before we do that, I'd like Eddy to talk a little bit about his experience of Rise Up and Shout and the book.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. When I first went into Rise Up and Shout, I think I was 15 years old. I was super stressed and nervous because I didn't really know if I was quote unquote old enough to be part of the show. And I'm sure you remember that. I think the age limit was about like 16, 17, around that. But I was 15 and I really had something to say to the world. Didn't quite know what exactly, but I just knew that I wanted to say something. And I was so passionate about poetry, so passionate about dance, so passionate about just throwing something out to the world that I think the world would love. And then that's when I kind of ran into Rise Up and Shout. And then I did see the original documentary that they created, and it's something that really interested me to be a part of. And that's when I reached out to Brian and the whole team, and they did reassure me that I was old enough to be part of this event. And I remember I was 15, so obviously I didn't drive or anything like that. And so I relied on a lot of transportation. And more specifically, the first audition that I did, my brother actually took me, and I really, really wanted to go, and I just didn't have any way of getting there. And, luckily my brother told me, "Hey, let's do it. I support you 100%. And he took me, and that's when I laid it all on the line, and I did a dance piece. And that's basically what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was just going to do a dance piece, but I said, hey, maybe I actually want to do a video piece as well, and kind of just showcase my life to the world, just because being Latino and being a gay male and growing up in this community, it's very important to showcase our voices. And so I did speak with Brian about trying to do both, just because I didn't want to cut the dance piece off. I didn't want to cut the video part out. So I really wanted to incorporate both. And I'm so thankful that they made room for both pieces. And it really meant a lot to me, just because I think that was one of the first times where my whole family was there, and I had came out as bisexual at the time, and my mom was there, and so she kind of saw that, and I just talked about who I was as a person, my life, and it's really important to showcase these different parts of you, and then aside from the dance piece, just because you never know that so many people are relating to you. So many people look up to you, or so many people might say, well, that person's doing, all these different things. And if someone, if you give your voice to like a showcase, and there's someone at home maybe watching, or someone in the audience watching that has the same thoughts and feelings as you do, and may be able to relate to you and connect on like a deeper level. And I've had people come up to me after the showcase, after I performed that day, and people were, you'd be amazed on how many people are feeling the same way in terms of maybe not feeling good enough, maybe not feeling like in the right shoes that they're in, so to speak. The cards that were dealt to them, in terms of life, are not something that they wanted, but here they are. And so I did receive, a lot of applause for that, which I greatly appreciate. And from there on, Brian reconnected back to me about this book, and I thought it was a really, really great idea, just because I do love poetry as well. I do love writing. There are different things in the book that I would change to this day if I had the opportunity to do so. But it is what it is. It's very raw. It's very real. And I didn't realize, once the book was published and I read it for the first time, I didn't realize how aggressive of a child I was, and how mean I was, and how angry I was inside, that I just wanted to let things out. And I'm sure so many different people can relate. I think that's why this book is so important, just because there's so many different walks of life in this book, talking about so many different things, whether it's like suicidal thoughts, actions, just being Latino, coming from different parts of the world, growing up as LGBT, having family that disowns you, just a little bit of everything. I think that's why this book is super, super important, and I'm forever thankful to be part of it.
Yeah, thank you for that. A couple of things came up as you were talking. One of my teachers introduced me to this concept of intergenerational, and the way that he put it was the way that indigenous cultures, we all come from indigenous cultures of one sort or another. In indigenous cultures, you always have youth, adults, elders, and ancestors, and those four groups must talk and be together in order for the community or the tribe to thrive. So that's really the understanding behind this. I'm 25 miles away from home. Some of you are next door. I'm white, Eddy's Latino. But we're coming here tonight, those of us that are in the room, and those of us that were part of Rise Up and Shout came together to form a community. We need each other. We need each other. And specifically in our own communities, be they LGBT, Latino, the indigenous understanding, though it's not active necessarily, is still very important, and it is active on a psychological, spiritual level. So elders and adults working with youth, mentoring, helping them bring out their voice in front of an audience that is supportive, yes, but also there because they are the adults and elders that need to hear from the youth what's going on. And then the bigger understanding beyond that also is that the ancestors are helping to inform this. So I mentioned Rilke, the poet. I don't know if he's LGBT or not, but he's a poet and an artist and an ancestor for this book. That what Rilke thought was, it's not about judging this young person's, this potential poet's verses. It's about mentoring this young person because young people need mentoring. And I think the most effective mentoring takes place within community. Not necessarily community organizations, boys and girls clubs, things like that. Those are all very good and effective at what they do, but they're more skills-based, they're more career-based, they're more getting you out into that day-to-day world-based. This was really more psychologically, spiritually based. What's your real voice? Like Eddy was saying, there are some things that are really raw in there. And I think part of the reason that that came out was because we provided, all of us, you included, provided the community in which that can come out. And that's the purpose of community, to commune, soul to soul. And there are very few places where that can happen. There's a big, large LGBT center in Hollywood that does a lot of support groups and medications and psychiatric and mental health, and that's great. But this was more based in that understanding that the soul needs to speak with another soul, maybe somebody further along that path. And maybe somebody further along that path needs to know that the youth are also trying to go down that path. And it's the arts that often bring out that soulful voice. So that is really what we try to do here. And the film, the documentary, and the book are a furthering of that. You know, okay, we've done this, now how can we continue the conversation? And I think it's just so cool that, pardon me, Eddy's 25, I'm almost 60. When we met, I was 45, he was 15. I mean, you just don't hear about that anymore. You know, you do your 6 to 8 months or year and a half at Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or Boys and Girls Club, and then you go out into the world and, you know, maybe you come back and say hi to one of the social workers or something at some point, and that's all great stuff. I'm not trying to disparage that. But this is something where, and I think it's based on the letters that we wrote and conversations like this, that tap into something that's more eternal and more soulful and always needed. So that's where you'll hopefully feel the letters coming from. And Eddy, anything else before we jump in?
No, I think you said everything so perfectly. This experience has really helped me connect with my community because, we were all together. I remember talking in a, I believe it was your Westlake place, and it was all of us in a table, and we kind of just brought up this idea. Hey, why don't we create letters and see where this goes? And
Silver Lake, yep.
Yeah, Silver Lake,
Yep,
exactly.
right.
And we all just talked amongst each other and now created this beautiful piece that we can take with us for many years to come. And again, this book is super important just because it talks about all the different struggles and things that we all face.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. Looks like we have a couple more people coming in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to read the letters that Eddy and I wrote to each other. And what I would encourage you all to do is think of I mentioned the timeline of about a year of the letters going back and forth. Try to think of this in terms of, and feel into it in terms of a lifetime. Because the letters really cover a lifetime. You know, coming out is a lifetime process, which by the way applies to everybody, not just LGBT. We're always coming out into a bigger life. And I think that's something that, because we have to do it, hopefully we offer the world. So try to think of it, the letters, in terms of a life. When I read Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet, it felt like a lifetime. You're covering birth, death, and everything in between. So with that said, are you ready to read some of the raw, not so comfortable stuff?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, go ahead. And we might as well just do each one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a little bit of a stutter problem, so I excuse me for that ahead of time.
Not a problem.
So this is one of the first letters that I wrote, and here goes nothing. Dear Rise Up and Shout, I watched as they beat him, calling him faggot, worthless, queer, and more. But it was all just a flashback to the day I was beaten. That him is me. I can feel the force of their fists pressing against my face with hatred, accelerating further into their eyes. Help, help, I screamed to the top of my fucking lungs. I hate you was across my mind as bystanders stood there laughing, watching me bleed, watching me suffer. 1 more, 2 more, 3 more, 4. The punches left scars throughout my body, but besides the physical scars, it left a mental scar that fails to fade. Coping with such memories is difficult. What am I supposed to do now? Well, now, toleration I have none of. What do I do now when I see such brutality? Beat the shit out of them? That's the only thing I can think of. To this day, the word faggot gets said way too much for things that are irrelevant. They use faggot as a form of hatred and gay as a form of meaning unpleasant. Every time I hear them, I feel like punching them in their fucking faces and making them feel the pain I have felt for being a faggot. I want to stop, but where do I begin? I am sick and tired of people judging and saying gay or faggot as the easy way out. Bitch, shut the fuck up. Try being beaten. Try being told that your love isn't real. You know what we face. About a year ago, I remember witnessing the same situation. Some pieces of shit low lives punching a kid for lusting after another guy. Fuck that shit. With my thoughts racing, I went over and stood in between them. Once again, the flashback began. They yelled at me, "Hey, fucker, move. Don't stand up for a queer." My response was, I am a queer, and I am standing up. They rushed towards me, but I refused to stop. They punched me and kicked me, but I refused to stop protecting. My anger grew, and so did theirs. All I can think about was how I promised myself I wouldn't let anyone get hurt the way I had been. I'd rather take the pain. I was left hurt, physically and emotionally. The victim yelled at me, "You should have let them beat me. I'm going to hell anyway." He gave me a big fuck you and left. No thank you, nothing. Some people just don't appreciate things. To this day, I still refuse to let people get hurt. But I don't know if I should regret what I did because I think to myself, was it worth it? Eddy.
Dear Eddy, thank you so much for your letter. I'm struck by your courage and by your anger, which has much love in it. I too am angry, and I also love much. I am angry about losing my first boyfriend to AIDS, and I am angry that the word faggot still gets used a lot, sometimes by me. And I am angry that the huge love gay men have to show the world is not celebrated as a gift. I remember when I met you when you auditioned for our Rise Up and Shout event with your dance and your film, and I felt the passion of your refusal to do anything halfway. You slammed right into the floor with your dance move, and your film brought tears and laughter. Rise Up and Shout was a great event, a wonderful show, but it was so much more than that. It had the quality that your letter has, balls and tenderness. Your letter says, "Toleration I have none of, and I hear yet more passion. I feel your blood." This is a tremendous quality. It is a kind of courage of refusal, a refusal of the table scraps of toleration, of acceptance, of being okay with it. What of celebration? Gay men are a gift. You ask the question, was it worth it? Your letter answers that question. You struggle to make sense of all of it, the longing for love, the kicks and the screams, the courage, the fear, and meek betrayal from the other queer with his fuck you and his I'm going to hell anyway. You struggle and feel the rushing of force through your whole body, and then you yourself are the answer. You dance and make film and make music with your words and make soul with your life. You are also vulnerable as anyone with courage necessarily is. It was vulnerable for you to stand up. It was vulnerable for you to write this letter to me. It is vulnerable for you to be gay. But it is just this feeling or way of being that reaches its hand across to me as I sit and read your letter and then write these words back to you. I feel again the difficulty of love, the difficulty of you and I loving each other right now with these words in the middle of all the hatred. When I came out, I was both stronger and more vulnerable. I saw the world of gay people and how they are... Wow. I saw the world of gay people and how they are hurt again and again. And both my love and my anger grew, and I felt our impossible struggle as the heart's way towards freedom. I read your letter and I struggle with your questions and with the easy answers that dart at me. I try to stay with your courage and anger of love and scars and beauty. I refuse explanation or even understanding, and I just sit. No, I stand, and I read your letter. I stand as I stood and held the hand of my first lover, Stephen, as he died of AIDS. I stand as I stood with my partner, Kevin, all those years in San Francisco. I stand with friends and mentors like Mark Thompson and Malcolm Boyd, and I stand with the willingness in your letter. I stand. This is the real joy, and it is quiet sometimes, soft like approaching thunder. This standing in this writing that you and I are now doing, this is the real courage. It hurts, though, moving sometimes like glass through blood. But then this cuts your heart ever more open. It is like the duende of the poet Lorca, that earthly, passionate, hard love that has you, quote, seeking the duende. There's neither map nor discipline. We only know it burns the blood. Is there then more to say? I go back to your letter and the struggle for real love that you describe. So another answer to the question of was it worth it is that it was worth it because it is a love that is real. We are talking of gay then as a real love, a radical, original root experience, something that cries out for the soul saying, I am a man who loves men, who turns thousands of years of men killing men into the possibility of men lying down with men, living the possibility, as Walt Whitman said, we two boys together clinging, one the other never leaving. This is difficult. As the poet Rilke said, for one human being to love another human being, that is perhaps the most difficult task that has been entrusted to us. It is all the more difficult when you get pushed down and hit and kicked for this love, or watch others get pushed down and hit and kicked for this love, and then perhaps wonder why the burden of this love was ever put on you. But then the answer again is in your letter and in your life. It is a holding out for that real love. It is a standing up instead of walking by. This is not a hero move, but a move of love. Like so much love, it suffers a first betrayal. Faith is broken over and over, but you are not so much broken as vulnerable, strong and fragile, questioning and yet more certain that this is who you are because this is what your soul looks like. And so we arrive at beauty. You live the life of your soul, Eddy. This is the first and lasting agreement you made to come into this world. You, as the Eddy who wrote these words, full of balls and tenderness and elegant cries of anger, and the raw ache of a love that is longed for more than known. This is your real strength and your true love. Right?
Letter number 2.
Please.
Okay. I promise myself I won't cry. So
Good luck.
We'll see what that's like. Dear Rise Up and Shout, I feel lost within myself. I don't know whether I should tell my dad or not. I feel like the words I have to say will destroy him. I'm his son, though. Shouldn't he love me regardless? Shouldn't I be able to come up to him and say, Dad, I'm having boyfriend troubles? He's my father, and as a son, I love him regardless of the abuse he put my mother through. There comes a point when you are on the edge of bursting. I just want to be accepted by him and not have to pretend that I am something I am not. I am tired of hearing, Son, I haven't seen you with a girl lately. What's up with that? I wish I was able to just say, well, Dad, it's because I'm with a guy. But fuck that. I'm terrified of the reaction he will give once he realizes who I am. Feeling like a failure to him is the worst, especially as his son. What if he feels like it's his fault that I am the way that I am? You see, I'm more hesitant to tell him because my dad is sick. Over the course of these years, he's had 1 stroke and 2 heart attacks. And somehow God still managed to let him stay. Because of these occurrences, my dad was given news that his heart only works half as well as it's supposed to. I know I'm kind of exaggerating, but what if my dad panics when I tell him and it gives him another heart attack? Then what? I'm just scared of rejection, especially by him. My mom is slowly beginning to accept me. But what about my dad? Don't both parents deserve to know who their son is? All in all, I'm scared that something might happen to him again. But then, God forbid, he passes away without telling him who I am. I will honestly live the rest of my life with regret if that happens. There, that is why there are times where I just want to let him out already. Should I tell him or should I not? Eddy.
Thank you. Emotion's a good thing. It's just hard to do when you got a mic in your hand.
Yeah.
Dear Eddy, it was nice to get your letter, like opening a gift. It caught me like a pair of friendly eyes across a crowded room. Coming out wise, I told my dad first. I was older then than you are now, about 20 or 21, living and working in Los Angeles. My dad came out a lot to LA for visits. My parents lived in Michigan. And this seemed like something that had to be done face to face. Dad and I drove to a restaurant. He drove. I sat terrified in the passenger seat, rehearsing bad speeches. Finally, as we pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant, I knew I had to get it out, so I said, "I'm dating someone." To which he responded with some kind of usual curiosity, after which I just threw it out there. "It's not a girl." Some silence followed, and then he sighed and said, "Well, you can't help that." It seems like I should have been a little pissed off at his response, but really, I just wanted all of this over with. So when he next asked if he should tell Mom, I quickly said yes and exhaled a lot. This was hard, awkward, strangely angry, and full of the worst doubts. It was a relief and an empty space at the same time. I felt very, very alone. It's odd, the whole coming out process. Something that should not yet must be. It is unique, it seems unique to our minority. One does not come out as Latino or Jewish, at least in the same sense. We can hide, which, like most things that protect for a time, cause more and more damage the longer they are held on to. I felt like I had to come out more than wanted to come out, like some sort of near-death experience or meeting with the Almighty had caused me to swear to no more lies. So I came out, and the truth freed me and made things harder. I must admit I chuckled a little when you talked of worrying about your dad having a heart attack or stroke or something by coming out. But then I thought, isn't that the way? It feels like an earth-opening cataclysm for us. What more fitting image than giving your dad a heart attack or a stroke? I saw at a certain point that whether I was coming out of the closet or realizing a different truth, I was always coming out. When I left Michigan, I came out. When I read a eulogy at my mother's funeral, I came out. When I met my first lover, Stephen, I came out. When he died, I came out. I am always coming out. Reclaiming an authority I abandoned or recognizing a love I failed to nurture. At core, it is always about breaking shame and falling back into fragile courage. And so life begins again. Now, there is also the specific aspect in your letter about your father, your relationship with him, and whether you come out to him. This is difficult. Like you, I loved my father, but I was also afraid of him. I was afraid of coming out to him. But then that's what made it such a freeing move, so revolutionary. It was like saying, the line gets drawn here. I hide no more. I think what you and I and others like us are doing is revolutionary. We approach men and reach out our hands instead of our fists, risking love. And it really is the love we seek, much more than the validation or the acceptance or the tolerance or whatever other table scraps try to pass themselves off as political and social gains. We demand love, nothing less. It's scary because men are scary, but not so much scary as deeply wounded at such a level as to require an almost primal experience to awaken a love forgotten so long ago as to seem non-existent. but then it is not non-existent. It lives and breathes profoundly and perhaps finds its most recent expression through the gay experience. I was afraid, and I found courage. I'm still afraid sometimes, but I want to love. I must love. And so it is the same with you at 16, fighting for love. I thank you for the gift of your letter, Eddy, and close in saying that you'll know what to do because your heart is so obviously alive. Right?
Dear Brian, over the course of the years, I've noticed something about myself. I have some very strange depression. What is there to do? I've seen doctors, psychologists, but nothing changes. I hate depression. Ever since my parents separated, I started noticing it more and more. It isn't so bad during the day, but at night is when it gets worse. I hate the fact that anything can trigger it. This past weekend, I attended and performed at a showcase for cheer, a cheerleading event at my school. Everything was going great, but then it began kicking in. I see these other good-looking dudes perform and do amazing moves. These guys are built cheerleaders. I compare them to myself, and thoughts start racing throughout my head. I'm not good enough, nor will I ever be. My depression skyrockets at times like these. Is it jealousy, maybe? Or the fear of not being good enough? I get this so easily out of nowhere. I can be sitting at home, lying down on the couch, when all of a sudden, tears begin streaming down my face, and the thoughts of being worthless and not good enough run through my mind once again. What causes my sudden breakdowns? Am I that fucking sensitive? I'm just trying to find myself and my worth in a world that's pressuring me to be perfect. Eddy.
Dear Eddy, you ask if you are that fucking sensitive, and the answer is yes. Most gay men are. Some try to hide this with bad skits of butchness or even worse productions of bitchiness, but then this does little but call attention to what is trying to be hidden. And what is trying to hide is our beautiful natural soul that feels everything very deeply. I find it revolutionary, indeed divine, that there are a group of men on this planet whose primary gift is sensitivity. Perhaps our influence will one day stop war. All that said, though, I know it's not easy to carry a sensitive soul around in this world. There you sit and suddenly the tears start to flow. That's a beautiful thing in so many ways, but also real suffering. I can only remember the words of the great poet William Blake. One can only handle as much joy as suffering. In everything you do, Eddy, I see you holding out for this joy instead of the transitory happiness that most settle for, especially in high school. I noticed in your letter a lot of compare and contrast. You know, you may or may not be more muscular, tall, smart, green, or brown-eyed than your fellow cheerleaders. The fact that you made this squad and perform regularly tells me you have the courage and rhythm and talent, and yes, good looks to make the cut. But then that's always what happens, isn't it? We make the cut and set the standard ever higher, bringing ourselves down with comparison. Let's look at this for a moment. Though we've been around in some form since the beginning, we gays of modern culture are still a pretty new minority, a pretty new phenomenon, a pretty new aspect of creation. People are still wondering what it's all about. The world doesn't really know us quite yet, or even know what fears or hatreds might mean, or even know what its fears or hatreds might mean. This keeps us on the outside, and when you're on the outside, you're always comparing yourself to those on the inside. It's easy to say be yourself, but who says this most often? Those who long ago gave up this struggle, or those with some form of privilege who have not had to truly endure this struggle. Those of us who have been pushed to the outside cannot so easily be ourselves. The longing to be inside is natural and sets up a lifelong struggle to know our souls in a world that too often rejects us. This is sometimes depression, sometimes pure fight, and it taxes our love to its limits. Again, courage is required and comes to only those who must have it. I call those people the lovers, You are one. As for other aspects of the depression you write of, I know it well. I've struggled with it for decades. Sometimes it hits, like you say, with tears, and other times because you're comparing yourself to the rest of the world. Still, at other times, it comes unannounced and uninvited, like thick clouds or latent lava. I've done a few things. I've seen psychologists, and the good ones have helped me get the emotion that sometimes hides under the depression. This is difficult but helpful. I feel a lot of emotion in your letters. It can take many, many years, though, to build the strength to carry real emotion. This, again, feels like part of your struggle and your courage. Give yourself time. I've also come to a kind of welcoming place with depression. After all these years, it has helped me realize important things. I realize I don't want to be part of everything, for then I get lost. I realize I don't always want to go up, since the air gets thin and it seems there are fewer people the higher I go, so it's lonelier. What great community I found in moments of sorrow. It's like a ritual of coming together, of remembering our short days here. I realize also I don't want to always be doing, for then I brush past too many things I love. When I first became HIV positive, I was tired a lot. I was depressed a lot. I couldn't do as much as I used to, and I took a lot of naps. I didn't have much appetite. I felt out of it. After a while, though, I found myself looking forward to the naps. When I awoke, I felt new. Then I discovered that the things I couldn't do anymore, I didn't really want to do. The things I did want to do became invested with a stronger love. After this first illness passed, I went on medication. I felt much better, but also found I had this new relationship with activity, with work and love, and yes, depression. I'm not sure if welcoming is the right term. It was and is more of a realization that happens little by little. My life is short. I am limited by certain things. I am human. I am no longer trying to be perfect. I'm trying to be me. The friends and family I do choose to spend time with are those I truly love. The work I put my energy into speaks to my soul. Without depression, I might try to do everything and end up with nothing. This might be wisdom, or it might be only the reflections of someone my age, probably both. You may need to struggle against depression at your age while you forge your life forward. Whatever you do, keep your heart close. Thank you again for your letter and for your courage, Eddy. I noticed in your heading that it was addressed Dear Brian instead of Dear Rise Up and Shout. I have to say that touched me deeply and stopped me from reading the rest of the letter for a moment. We are closer now through our words.
Dear Brian, not sure if this is a letter I've written before. Maybe more of a protest. I'm angry and I'm hurt, but I want to continue loving, learning, and being me. Pretty hard. I'm positive that anyone reading this has one way or another been exposed to the same-sex marriage debate that is happening right now. Many people have changed their social media avatars in support of marriage equality, while others march and protest on the streets. It is such a big topic that it has recently made its way to the Supreme Court. With that being said, let us ask the question, where do most Latinos stand on this topic? Particularly, Latino men who've traditionally been seen as macho or tough guys. I am of Latin American descent, and trust me, growing up attracted to the same sex is no walk in the park. My family is Catholic, and they believe in the traditional wedding of a man and a woman. The males in my family, including my dad, all have expectations that a male is to marry a woman and treat her as a queen, to have children, and to provide for their family. I only live with my mom now, though, ever since my dad did what he did. I remember when I was about 6, he beat my mom and I witnessed it. So much for treating her like a queen, huh? That was when I lost most respect for him, but my dad is my dad. For some reason, he always asks me, ¿Y tu novia dónde está? I fight back every single time the urge to say that I don't have a girlfriend. but a boyfriend. If only he knew, but at that time, he doesn't deserve to know. What scares me the most is thinking about one day coming out to him, and he disowns me as his son. Growing up in the San Fernando Valley, calling a man gay was one of the biggest insults you can say to him. Lives have been lost and people have been badly injured in the Latino community over those words. That wasn't all, though. A man being perceived as feminine or soft was also as good as a reason as any to victimize him. It happens often. Even today, with these knockout games these punks play, gays are targeted because they are perceived as weak, unable, or unwilling to fight back. I am a gay Latino male, and trust me, I know violence is not the solution, but I'd kick anyone's ass any day of the year if they fucked with me, the LGBT community, my family, or my friends. All in all, I'd like to say that times have changed, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Eddy.
Right. We're just getting started. Eddy, once again, I find courage, love, anger, and hurt in your letter. Maybe these qualities go together. Maybe they fit together as a definition of integrity. Also, you continue to struggle with your father. This has always been a primary struggle in my life too, whether with my actual father or a father figure of some kind. It's a man struggle or a man becoming struggle, especially for us gays. I was struck by the sense in your letter of things having changed for gay people, but also having not changed. Maybe it's always a struggle for every generation in different form, but similar impact. A few weeks ago, I had a confrontation with one of the kids I counsel. He's a straight guy, about 18, Latino. I had been working with him for almost a year, and we had talked about many things, including my being gay, his not being gay, and both of us presumably being okay with that. We got into politics this particular day, and at some point he said he was against gay marriage and that it was because of his beliefs, so, nothing personal. I told him it was very personal, and that the line between the personal and the political is a lot thinner than he might think. And by the way, was he willing to challenge his beliefs or have some curiosity about them? No? Well, then he couldn't work with me, I said, since therapy needed to be a mutual process. And this is not possible when one of the partners is felt to be a second-class citizen. He didn't think of me that way, honest. It was just, his beliefs. Again, was he willing to question or challenge these beliefs? No. Goodbye then. The rest of that day was full of anger and hatred. I felt it everywhere. I felt it towards me, towards others. As I walked and drove around the neighborhood, a mostly Latino community where I had worked with families for almost 10 years, I felt outcast, hated, hating back. I felt sick. I asked myself, screaming inside, we all struggle together as minorities, as people. Why can't we work together, live together, love? My question, my protest, felt not so naive as longing, not so angry as hurt, not so hateful as rejected. I stood at a crossroads that day. Something chose me, and I chose not to push it away as I had so often done. Things are getting better. It could be worse. People are doing their best. These things take time. It's ignorance, and that can't always be helped. All the excuses lined up. All the canned phrases lined up to put down the vital protest, the protest that always stays hidden until a disagreement arises. Then I stand at a crossroads. Do I take a seat at the back of the bus? This will all get better in time. Do I not vote as a woman? The right will be gained, even eventually. Just give it time. Do I marry? In time. But the time is now, and the protest is alive, and so am I. To be alive is to be in protest. To be in love is to be in anger towards injustice, ignorance, hatred. To cry out is to be out with your voice as the everything that makes the slight difference that keeps the whole thing alive. Otherwise, sleep. Things do change, but a struggle always remains. This is a core struggle There is a core struggle to this being human, this being alive, this being in love that breaks the heart and builds the bones. Perhaps our ancestors couldn't finish the job, so now it's ours, and then the next generation, and the next. We must love one another or die, wrote the acclaimed poet W.H. Auden on the eve before the Second World War, and this is always the struggle. ¿Y tu novia donde está? Your father asks. ¿Qué es el amor? I ask. Where is love? One human being for another. Father for son, friend for friend, gay man for gay man, straight man for woman, transgender, bisexual. Where is love? It's in your letter, Eddy, and in your heart, and in your bones, and in your life. It is received by me, returned to you with our words, reaching out across an impossible divide to bring a little closer together that which longs to be one. Keep up the good fight.
Dear Brian, I remember going to church every Sunday with my parents, hoping that I can pray the gay away. I remember having girlfriend conversations with my dad in the backyard as he smoked a cigarette and blasting the smoke in my face. I remember my dad was that active dad who would take his kids and their friends to do different activities. I remember times when he took my older brother, our neighbors, and myself to places such as the beach, the parks, lakes, rock climbing, and anything else you can imagine. I remember it all. I can honestly say my dad was great, but now I don't know what happened to him. He's been in and out of the hospital a bunch of times for a bunch of reasons. Smoking, eating bad food, not taking care of himself. I'm scared about his death. I love him and I'm also angry at him. I'm angry about what he did to my mom, about many of the bad things he did to her and to us. But also I'm angry about his questions about girlfriends, about what I know his reaction will be when I come out to him. So the other day I finally decided to come out to him. I wrote him something expressing my feelings. I just kind of wanted to pause and let everyone know that I wrote this letter, and before I can give it to my dad, he had actually passed away. So I didn't get a chance to actually officially come out to him. But I'd like to think that I did because, I think every parent knows their kids, whether we like it or not. But yeah. Will you ever be able to hold me like you once did? Advise me to follow the right path, but I don't think you understand that this is the right path for me. It can't be changed. Please stop your tears, it's hurting me. The fact that you're hurting over something I just don't have any control over is sending me into turmoil. Stop being selfish, it's me that has to live with this, not you. You've supported me in everything, so why not in this? No, Dad, you are not to blame. Just know that you didn't do anything to enhance it, nor can you do anything to stop it. I can't hide it anymore. I need to be the real me, to let him soar and set him free. He's been hiding in all these years just to protect you. I knew you would react like this. Wouldn't it have been better if I was terminally ill? Because you're making it sound like it's a fucking disease. It's not. You say you only want what's best for me? Well, guess what, Dad? This is it. This is what's best for me. I'm being selfish for a change. I know our religion is against this, but bullshit to that. I'd rather rot in hell than be somewhere where I'm clearly not accepted. Love thy neighbor? What if that neighbor is a raging homosexual? Can you love them then? I don't mean to be rude, but it's just that all this angst is slowly turning into anger. You have no idea how hard I've tried to get rid of all of these demons and to try and pretend that they're not there. I can't and will not pretend anymore, Dad. Disown me if you wish, but this is me. I love all of you, and that's never going to change. I'm just really hoping that before it's too late, you'll all welcome me for me and give me all of your blessings. You see, Brian, my dad is stubborn. My whole family has their problems, and I'm just currently a 17-year-old guy in his last year of high school who had to mature way too fast. I was never able to really enjoy my childhood, but it is what it is. My advice to those LGBT Latinos just like me is to keep fighting and keep believing in yourself, because in the end, it's all worth it. I don't have a perfect life. Most of us don't. It's the imperfections that make it perfect. All in all, my last words to you, Brian, are thank you. Thank you for helping me through so much, and thank you for being my elder. To my LGBT Latino community, keep doing what you do and stand up for yourself. Make your voice heard, and most importantly, never fall silent. With love, Eddy.
Dear Eddy, I'm so honored to know you and witness you and your courage and your love. What a rare moment to read your letter and feel profoundly such gratitude. How wonderful just to say out loud, sitting here alone, thank you. I look forward to your future and the present that is creating it and the past that is reshaping your own story each day as you burn away the darkness you never invited and welcome a love refused by others. In the middle of darkness, you say light. You save so many with this, so many you do not even know. I too am saved. I'm brought back home by your words. I forget with the struggles of each day, the betrayals, the silences of unspoken love. I forget who I am, and I forget what I came for. And then I read your words, and I'm home. I know your dad sees your love and your courage and your truth. I know he is proud of you. I wonder whether he will ever say it or admit it to himself. I don't know. It is hard to be who we really are. Waking up and living, this is hard work. It is easier or simply more known to go on with generations of silence, to sleep many a small betrayal, as the great poet William Stafford called it. But to quote Stafford further, it is important that awake people be awake, for the darkness around us is deep. And so you light your candle. It is done with an anger of love, a sorrow of deep longing, and a gentle but fierce beauty like a tiger at dawn. This is life, this exclamation. It is a shout from the distance, seeing its lover afar. You say thank you to me for being your elder. As you speak this, of course, the elder is born in you. This is initiation. You're close to the mystery now, and you feel the fire. Welcome home, my dear friend. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Eddy.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions, comments, please.
That was deep.
What's that?
That was deep.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. You know, one of the things for me, and I'd be interested to see how the experience was for you. I mean, the emotion still, I've read and rewritten and written those for 5 years, 100 times, and it's still there. That means something's there. Something beyond just you and I, but very much you and I. And that helps me.
Yeah, definitely. You know, the letters we wrote so long ago, and when you first mentioned that, you know, the books were here, and I was really, really super excited to.
My copy, by the way.
I'll get your copy. And the when you were telling me that the books were here, I immediately asked you like, "Hey, when can I get them?" And now they're here, and I remember I got home, and I immediately wanted to share this with one of the most important people in my life, which is my boyfriend. He's here today. And so I kind of read it over with him, and I was like, hold your horses because we're about to go on a wild ride. Just because I hadn't read the letters in such a long time. And so when I finally reread the letters again, like how you mentioned, those same emotions come back, and I still remember writing those letters as if pen was touching paper again, and just reopening those wounds. And now it's been years since my dad's passing, and the wound still feels so fresh. You can't get over a loss, and I think that's one of the very important parts of who I am as a person to this day was my father. And again, like as we mentioned or as we talked about, I believe like a month or two ago, it's that trauma, that you grow up with, and the abs the absence the absence of that father figure that you so much long for. That's why I based my letters so much on him, just because I felt like I was reaching out to something that just wasn't tangible. Um, so yeah.
Thank you for that. Um, this is a gift. It really is. We meet people in our lives, and some become romantic interests, others become friends, others become really part of a community. And it's such a gift. I didn't know it existed until I was, I don't know, in my 30s. And clearly, from reading the letters, it does exist. It always has existed. It always will exist. We just have to find it. I mean, here we are sitting and reading these letters and feeling them like we just wrote them. And here I am making this comment before we read them. They kind of seem like a lifetime. What does that all mean? I mean, that's the eternal stuff that we're all dealing with all the time. Way more than job, career, way more than all of that. And you doing this and feeling the emotion is a reminder that this is what matters, and it's always there. We're doing it tonight, all of us, and we may never see each other again, but we've touched on something for a moment. And if you're like me, when you get some of these moments, you go after more of them because it's what matters.
Yeah, definitely. Um, like I mentioned in one of the letters, there's still so much work that needs to be done. There's still going to be, the work is endless, after all of us pass, there's still going to be so much more that needs to be done. Unfortunately, I feel like the world is really going backwards, and history really does repeat itself, especially with what happened recently in the San Fernando Public Library when they protested a drag queen story hour, and there was a lot of people claiming their need to protect their kids, so to speak, when in reality, there's different things that happen at home when where's the protection there, or there's different things that happen at other places where, so where's the protection there? And what they're really doing is they're really creating this space for these kids and having these kids be really, really scared. And these kids are going to end up, either wanting to commit suicide, actually committing suicide, being afraid to come out, being afraid to be who they are, because the world is not as black and white as it was many years ago. Like it's never black and white. It's just it was portrayed as black and white. But now, as things are slowly starting to come out, like for example, gay people, the queer community, it's always been a thing, but now it's getting more and more talked about, and I think people are just angry that we're finally starting to get our voice in many different things, whether that's something as simple as a drag queen story hour. You know, if you don't like it, just don't take your kids there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I think it's a backlash, but I think, I'm hoping that the move is forward. Um, Questions, comments from people?
I have a comment. It's 2023, damn it. Get with the program.
Yep,
Yeah.
you got that right.
Exactly,
Yep,
exactly.
yep.
Others? Yeah.
So you wrote a lot of the letters when you were 15. Now as a 35-year-old, what do you think you would have told yourself, your younger self?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Yeah, so I wrote most of the letters when I was 15, 16, even 17. But yeah, I was younger. Well, I mean, I'm still young, right? But that was years ago. I think a lot of the letters I would keep the same in a sense. However, they're just so raw and full of profanity. I don't want people to just think that's all I'm about. And I would definitely make the letters a little longer. I felt my letters were very, very short and
I'd
sweet
shorten
and
mine.
simple. Yeah, like super short. And there's just so many different things to say. I think I really just scratched the surface. So if we ever have the opportunity, which would be amazing and kind of like a where are they now type of
Yeah.
thing, and you know, kind of recreating something with letters, I feel like that would be just totally different. Again, just because when I wrote these letters, I just scratched the surface. I didn't really want to get into details or about, you know, my father and everything going on at home, or my suicidal thoughts and ideations, or how things were at school. So yeah, so I definitely would, if I had the opportunity to talk to my 15-year-old self, I would definitely tell him, don't be afraid. Just go for it. Be raw. Just let it be. Yeah. Thank you.
I would just say love more. Others, please. Questions, comments?
I think that your the way you wrote it out, like with the profanity and everything, like if there's something in the future or anything, just keep it because that is wrong. That it's not like it's something that's scripted. Like, oh, I have to write it this way. Like it's just right down. It comes from the heart, from your head, just that moment. Just write it down because whatever it is, try it or not, it doesn't matter. It's
Don't hold
what's
back.
inside.
Mhm.
Yeah, no one's gonna see you for oh, he's a sailor. Like, you know, just
Yeah.
whatever is there, don't hold back.
Yeah, definitely. It's really
I
important
agree.
not to hold back.
Yeah. I mean, and that's true for all of us. I think it's particularly true for gay people. It's this best little boy in the world thing that we have going on. It's, you know, and yeah, fuck that. Yeah, Chris.
To piggyback off what she said, I think it's, you know, we just get so stripped of our rawness, you know, and like that Pablo Picasso quote, you know, we start off as kids and then by the time we get adult, we lose the childhood and we have to regain the childhood back. And it's like, I think we get assimilated, you know, and it's just, we start walking on eggshells and we want to make everybody else feel comfortable but us.
Yeah.
You know? Instead of just taking up space just to be us, you know. And
Yeah.
I think you've had so much courage to be that raw when you're that age because kids are always being told don't be heard, just, you know, sit down, shut up, get away, be quiet, stop playing, stop doing, stop being, stop breathing, you know. We get a kid just
Yeah.
be themselves, you know, and like you said, it's just they're just imploding and I feel like that's still the generation, the younger generation has that angst and that anger still bottled up because they don't know where to turn, you know.
Mhm.
And I think this is definitely something that should be carried on, passed on, you know, to our younger gay kids, you know, because it's like I didn't come out until I was in my 40s, you know, so it's like I don't know if I was suppressing it or if it was lying dormant. I don't know, you know. I just know that it blossomed and I had to let it out later on, you know, like a band of horses, you know. But it's like I applaud you, man. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
How you were just able to do that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And like you were mentioning about suppression and, you know, kids being suppressed, it happens so often, unfortunately. I'm still a little suppressed to this day, just because, like, for example, if I have a boyfriend, I still tell my mom mi amigo, and not mi novio. Um, I would love for her to hear that or start using the term, just because I came out when I was 14 years old, so I was one of those fortunate ones to come out very young. And so that just goes back to that suppression, you know. So she always says, like, "Tu amigo donde está? Tu amigo donde está?" Or like, "Where's your friend? Where's your friend?" But she knows it's that friend, you know, that specific friend. But I can never differentiate. Oh, I'm going out with my amigo, or voy a ir con mis amigos. So it's like,
Who's
who
your
does she?
little friend?
Yeah, like who are you talking about? Are you talking about your actual boyfriend, or are you talking about like your actual friends? So you know, it's that suppression that kids have, and they're so scared. And you know, speaking from experience myself, I've suppressed that and just told my mom mi amigo, and she kind of just left it as that for years and years, just to make her feel comfortable. But what about me feeling comfortable? You know, so yeah, I definitely want to change that, but we'll see where it goes. And it's funny because my boyfriend's always like, "I'm just a friend to you. I'm just a friend to you because of your mom." But you know, I was like, "No, my mom knows. Like, you know, you're that friend. My mom knows. Trust me." She's like, "No, like you're amigo." My mom's always here, like, "Where's Eddie? Where's Eddie? I love Eddie." But yeah, our parents are so different with one another. But again, suppression's gonna change for
Yeah.
sure. So
I think your mom's gonna know from this day forward.
maybe, hopefully, yeah.
I was when I came out to my mom. I'd been in the Navy, and she she said, "Oh, that's why you was." She was from the South. That's why you was on that ship with all those men. Anybody else? Yeah.
How did you find this program, and how do you think it affected like your coming out, and how do you think it affected like your like? Do you feel like it motivated you to want to reach out to other people and walk them through that part of their lives?
Yeah, no, great question. Thank you for that. I moved to LA from San Francisco to do work with my mentor, Don Kilhefner, who some of you know, who is he's 85 now. He founded the LA LGBT Center, which was the first of its kind and still the largest. He was one of the original queer, I'll use the word queer because the LGBT is kind of turning into an alphabet soup
Yep.
here. He was one of the original queer activists, and he got me interested in this kind of work, and so all of us sat around, himself, my friend Mark Thompson, who unfortunately passed away, used to be the editor of the Advocate magazine. We're all sitting around, and it came up as a topic: how can we reach the youth? I mean, all those old farts are sitting around, that's fine, you know. How about reaching the youth? And what about the elders? And how do we get people talking? Because this is not community, just a bunch of, at the time, 40-somethings talking to each other. It's like armchair coaches bitching about the game on TV or something like that. So what do we do? And Don came from an Amish background. He's an activist. You get up, you build, and you come together. And, you know, so from that point forward, we came up with the idea of, we live in LA, how about a performance event that's not based on talent, but based on voice and one's gifts, whether poetry, dance, song, whatever. And to do mentoring to help people get that voice out on a stage, which is really more of a welcoming platform, which is why we put together a specific audience of, you know, nonprofit activists, people like that, who were basically cheering them all on and helping them get to what were some difficult parts, you know. And they were not, and most are not, performers. They performed, but really what they did was came out with their voice. And so it was really a welcoming ceremony for the youth. And that took about a year of going back and forth, and how do we do this? And people that would come with their headshots and it's like, no, that's not what we do. This is not, you know, American Idol, et cetera, et cetera. And some of the youth were like, oh no, I don't, you know, if you're not a talent manager, I'm not interested, and that's cool. But we had to fight for something like this. So that's how it came together.
Yeah, the way I found out about Rise Up and Shout, I'm like, it was many years ago.
Did
It
you see
wasn't
it in
even that
an
many.
ad or something?
I think it was Facebook.
Yeah.
I think it was Facebook. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
underage than using Facebook, even though you had to be 18, but I still used Facebook. Um, yeah, so I think it was through Facebook, and then I just really wanted to be part of it, especially because I loved poetry and dance so much, and just all these different things. I really was eager to have a voice. And so, obviously, at the time, again, I didn't drive. I didn't have a way of going from point A to point B. So thankfully, I have really supportive siblings, and they really helped me get to where I wanted to be. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be the person who I am today. And if my brother couldn't take me, my sister would be like, "I'll try my best." If my sister couldn't take me, my brother would be like, "I'll do it." So I'm forever thankful.
Anybody else? Yeah. It's the boyfriend.
It's a friend.
What advice would you give a young male youth who's listening and struggling to find who they are, afraid of going out to the world? What advice would you tell them to
Yeah. So what advice would I give the younger generation looking to come out? Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Um, well, it's going to take time. It's not something that you can just wake up one morning and say, I am going to be gay to everybody today, and or I'm just going to be bisexual, pansexual, and then just spit it out to the world. I wish it was that easy where you can just tell everyone and just rip the bandage off, but unfortunately, it's not. So I think I would tell them to be patient with themselves, be patient with others around them. Like for example, with me and like my entire family, just be patient. Time truly does heal, and it truly does get better. Just because looking back at many years ago and how depressed, anxious. I mean, I'm still anxious, but that's besides the point.
Me too.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it just gets better, and one day you're gonna wake up and realize, wow, I am the person who I've always wanted to be, and many, many years ago, I would have only dreamt of this day. And just hold on. That's all I can say. Really, just hold on. Listen to "Hold On" by Adele. That's a perfect song. Yeah. And yeah, a lot of people, younger generations, have suicidal thoughts and ideations, maybe even have attempted once or twice. But again, I can truly say from my personal experience that by holding on, even if it's just a little thread, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That's great. Really, really great. I think a lot of emphasis is put on being normal, being safe, and I think some of that, the safe part is good, but I think at some level too, you have to go into the fear. I mean, I was terrified. I still am. But sometimes fear says, don't go down a dark alley. But a lot of times fear says, that's where you're going. You want to go kicking and screaming or willingly because that's where you're going. In other words, it's bigger than me. It holds out more than I am right now, and it's going to open my heart, but it's going to challenge me, and it's going to make me very afraid. That's been true for many things in my life, including this project, including sitting up here and doing this. So look, if you're at a school, and it's not safe, obviously protect yourself, seek out counselors, be safe, but also pay attention to your heart. And sometimes you're going to have to follow your fear. And I'm not talking about, foolish things. I'm talking about, well, I remember me and my posse drove an hour from Muskegon, Michigan to Grand Rapids, Michigan to go to the theater to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And you know what? I found my tribe, if only for a night, and we followed our fear, and we came out just a little bit more. And doing things like that, I think, is vital. And otherwise you die a little bit each day. And you just can't do that. And I say that with all my heart because I was and am a terrified person, I say yes anyway. Sometimes waiting for the fear to subside or the feelings to come to you. Maybe, maybe not. Sometimes you just got to dive in and find your tribe, find your posse, open your heart as much as you can, and try to find home. Anybody else?
I have another question actually for you, Brian.
Yeah.
Since you're older than my brother there. How do you make somebody understand, or not really, how do I say it? Somebody that's not informed on the, LGBT community, like, how do you make them understand, or not make them, but like try to comprehend the situation, like, where you guys are coming from? Like,
Yeah.
somebody not knowing, the traditional man and woman, partnership, whatever, when love is love.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you for that. I think for everybody, but particularly for gay people, since there's this coming out process, and also because we go across all religions, all ethnic groups, being who you are is the best way, and that does not mean role model. That means sometimes being in trouble. That means sometimes refusing to do shit that's not right. That means sometimes following your fear when mom and dad might say, don't do that. And again, I'm not talking about foolish stuff here. I was an angry activist for a long time, and I think I pissed as many people off as I converted them to the cause. And now, looking back at the way that I used to be and the way I am much more now, it's me. It's how I live my life. It's just, you can feel it from Eddy. You can probably feel it from me, I'm a sober person in recovery, and we have an expression there, attraction rather than promotion. So for me, it's not about promoting myself. It's not about trying to convert people to a cause. Revolutionaries can sometimes be dangerous. Sometimes they can be great. To me, it's about living the best possible life for me, and then people find you.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I think you've done such a really great job, all of you guys, at understanding. A lot of things don't get talked about a lot, which I wish they did. However, it's just really finding that common ground about who that person is, what their likes and dislikes are. That goes for everybody, regardless of your sexual orientation or male, female, transgender, whoever you are as a person. That goes for everybody. Just finding that common ground and really just understanding that person both physically and mentally. And there's so many different ways a person can be. A person is not just one way. Just because I'm gay doesn't mean I like X, Y, and Z. Just because someone's straight doesn't mean they like X, Y, and Z as well. It's just so complicated, and it's just about taking that time and really getting to know that person and know their behavioral patterns and what they're all about, and vice versa, and really having that communication. But one thing that my second youngest brother, no, I'm the youngest, but my brother Fernando, who's 2 years older than me, something that he always tells me after I came out to him and everything, he really enjoys tough love, and so he'll be like calling me a faggot, and then he'll see me put my head down, and then he'll be like shoving me, and he'll be like, "You're a proud faggot, though," and that's his way of showing that love. And he always tells me all the time, you have shown me not to give a fuck about who I am as a person and really being who I am, and that's it. Either you like me or you don't. And so he's like, I really applaud you for teaching me that. And so again, it's just really about finding that common ground with each other. because it's super easy to understand. You just have to open your heart, open your mind.
Yeah. Well said.
Anybody else?
I think both of you are very inspirational. And I do have a question. Do either of you guys do any more writing, or do you guys do poetry or anything like that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I do poetry. I do poetry. I have a poetry page as well. And yeah,
What's the page?
A Pen for the Soul on Instagram. So if you guys want to follow that, it's called A Pen for the Soul. Yeah, I do a lot of poetry just about life and just different things. People are very complicated. And so I just talk about every single little thing that there is, because all we see when you see someone, all you see is a facade, like their physical body, but you don't know what's their emotions, their intentions, and everything. So I talk about all sorts of different things in my poetry, such as like life experiences, mental health crises, things going around in the world, drag queen story hour being protested, and yeah.
I have been writing for a long time. This book is my first, and I published some essays mostly in psychological journal. I'm a psychotherapist, so I published some essays in a psychological journal. The most important one for me was after the massacre occurred at the Pulse nightclub in Florida, where a lot of gay people were slaughtered. I had to write an essay about that because while I am very supportive of anti-gun and you know, anti-terrorist and all of that, this was not about terrorism or guns. This was a hate crime, and so I had to write about that. And so, you know, writing's never left me. It's an art and a practice that I continue to follow. I don't have a page though. Others?
Hey Brian, did you already tell people how they can find maybe a copy of the movie, the documentary from way back?
Yeah, you know, there's a documentary that goes with the Rise Up and Shout project. It's called Rise Up and Shout, and I think it's still on Amazon and IMDb, the Internet Movie Database. I don't think you can buy off of that, but you can read about it. The book, all proceeds go to the youth, can be bought right over there.
Or online as well.
Have not been able to get it on. Oh yeah, how did
On
you
the
find? Yeah.
The Tia Chuchas.
Tia Chuchas
Sell them online.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. And if you buy it here now, Eddie and I will sign it. Thank you, everybody. This was super cool and a great way to spend a Friday night. And I know it's hard to get out and be in LA and be in the traffic. One of our freeways is shut down, so this means a lot to me. I know it does to Eddie that you all came out. Props to everybody. Thank you.